This is a very special day for me because this is the 20th of my funk genre profile on vinyl series of videos on YouTube. I started the first one of this series 5 years ago on a choppy 720p HD webcam. And now I'm doing it in full 1080 and the videos look wonderful and I have much better content as far as what I'm looking for is concerned. And I wanted to thank all of the people who have supported me in the last 5 years since I started this segment. It's been one of the most popular of all of my vinyl videos in terms of viewership, and now I've got 1080 HD on this and it looks much better. And I wanted to thank one particular person for this particular collection of albums, and that was David Kowalski. I met him at a flea market in Brunswick, Maine, that is open on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday morning and afternoon. And I encourage anybody coming to Maine to go to Brunswick and visit this place if they love vinyl. And you know, I heard him playing the Talking Heads album, Remain in Light, and you know, we got into conversations about music we liked. And I bought a lot of these albums from him, and from different parts of Brunswick, but a lot of them from him, including this one, More Hits by the Supremes. These albums you're going to see are 14 records that span from the year 1965 up to 1986, a pretty good period. This album has Nothing But Heartaches, Stop in the Name of Love, and Back in My Arms. You know, Motown, they were all about the hit factory, you know. Hits were their business, is what Berry Gordy said. So they were all about 45. So the albums, you know, they weren't really prioritized, but finding them, you know, it's interesting what they gave these, you know, Motown groups in terms of the assembly line approach they had to really help, you know, advance them forward. They were just calling it More Hits by the Supremes at this point because they were one of the biggest groups in America at that particular time. Right up there with the Beatles. My step-grandfather had this record when I was a teenager, and it has one of my favorite Supreme songs on it. Love is Like an Itching in My Heart, and also You Can't Hurry Love. And this is a very up-tempo kind of album. Supremes, a go-go. You can see them all dancing on the cover, or at least posing like they're dancing. This is from 1966. This has been recently reissued on CD with a lot of additional cuts. But this looks like an original pressing of the album. I look forward to hearing that. I actually love a lot of Motown albums. I know Motown didn't think in albums at this point, but, you know, there's some great material to be found. The Undisputed Truth, Cosmic Truth. I wanted to thank my friend on Facebook and a man who I've read for years, Ricky Vincent, for writing his book Funk in 1996 and really helped me, a teenage me, to understand how important the Undisputed Truth was in that period between Norman Whitfield's work with the Temptations and what he would do with Rolls Royce in the late 70s. And this album just has magnificent artwork. It's a little eaten up, you know. If you open it up, there's the Undisputed Truth. Now that is a serious funk look right there, folks. White afro wigs, the silvery makeup. I wouldn't mind getting one of those wigs myself. I kid you not. Alright, look forward to hearing that album. Fantastic Four, Got to Have Your Love. This is another Westbound album. They are actually, this, I thought it was a gatefold at first, but it actually isn't. And you've seen the Westbound label actually before, so I don't need to show you much of that. I first found out about Westbound from Funkadelic and the Ohio Players being on that label, but they had a lot more to offer, so. Billy Paul, When Love Is New, 1975. Fantastic Four, 75 as well. This is on the Philadelphia International label. You all know what that looks like. Another album on that label, Message in the Music, by the OJays. I'm really getting my OJays collection complete through vinyl here. I love this cover. It's among my favorite funk soul album covers of the 70s. It's a black inner sleeve. Here we have Joe Farrell. La Cathedra El Toro. I got into Joe Farrell big time about 15, 16 years ago. This is Joe Farrell, Stanley Clarke, Harry Gale, Richard T., Steve Gadd. It's from 1977. With the passing of Walter Becker recently, anything related to Steely Dan has really got my attention. There's Joe playing the sax. Barry White, the man. Now, this is something very special to me. This was the first album I heard Barry White on an 8-track player that my mother had out at our summer camp during the early 1990s. One song I remember from it was called Sha-La-La Means I Love You. Your sweetness is my weakness. From what I understand from my friend Henrique, a shout out to him, that was one of the songs that inspired Michael Jackson to want to do songs with Quincy Jones like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Barry White's groove at this point was really inspiring him. And this is the first pressing that I got. And it opens up like a bound letter. And inside the album, it has a special lyric sheet. And there's Mr. Barry White right there. I knew we'd do a pretty crappy imitation of him, but there was only one Barry White. When you open it up, the album jacket is gold. There's all the Barry White albums up until this point. There's his initials. There's the 20th Century label. This is the first pressing of this album, and it has all the information in it. So it was really good for me to find that, and I love that album. I love late 70s and early 80s Barry White. Sound in the mid-70s. There's a certain cliche to it. After Can't Get Enough of Your Love. But on this album, he really started to break through. In the 77, 78, started to break through into a whole other thing. So, love that album. Chaka Khan. She was transitioning out of Rufus with this album. And this opened right up with a bang. I'm Every Woman. But, this is an album that's really fantastic. It's got everything. It's got Ashford and Simpson, Arif Mardin on it. It really established her as a solo artist. But some of my favorite songs on this are Life is a Dance, which is a heavy, heavy stomping funk song. And then you've got Some Love, which is another wonderful funk song that Henrique and I both enjoy a lot. And the Message in the Middle of the Bottom, which is a very slow, bluesy kind of funk jam. And I Was Made to Love Him, a cover of the Stevie Wonder song where she changed the gender and everything. I have this on CD, but I always wanted this on album. I don't see it on vinyl very often. It's got the standard Warner Brothers label. George Benson also appears on this album in a duet called We Got the Love. Chaka's first album, 1978. Les McCann, the man. He was the guy that got Roberta Flack started, did a lot of work with one of my favorite sax players, Eddie Harris. I had this on a really lousy sounding cassette from 1978, but it's a great album, and it's going to be good to hear it on a good quality vinyl. Songs have got lyrics to them. Interesting picture of him playing the piano in the back. This is going to be an A&M Records, so you all know what that looks like from that time. This is one of the albums that David Kowalski and I were talking about. My father had this on CD, and I've been debating whether to get it on vinyl or CD, but I just love the idea of having this big cover. Feet Don't Fail Me Now by Herbie Hancock, 1979. I love this album from the moment I heard it as a teenager. And as I was telling David, I thought this would come into play eventually. Even though they were trashing it as, Disco Sucks and all that. Now having Daft Punk and Get Lucky and the vocoder really back in, this was way ahead of its time in the disco era. The song that really brought me into it was the first one, You Bet Your Love. Just that groove, the way Herbie was singing with the vocoder, and just the bass on that. And then, Ready or Not, another great Ray Parker Jr. one. And then Tell Everybody. And, Honey from the Jar and Knee Deep are great straight-ahead funk numbers. This is a fantastic album. Trust Me being the slower track on the record. This actually looks like it comes with one of these catalogs that has a number of different jazz albums in it. Look at all this great stuff from the Fusion era. There's Herbie Hancock, Bob James, Lonnie Liston Smith, Richard T. up there, Weather Report, Mongo Santa Maria. This is just worth the price alone. George Duke, Follow the Rainbow. I love finding things like that in albums. It's also got the original sheet. And there's Herbie from that time. And the album's actually in here in a protective, ordinary protective sheet. I don't blame them. It's in really good shape. And I'm really happy to have this particular album. This to me, in terms of late 70s, post-Headhunters, pre-Rocket Herbie Hancock, is one of my favorites of his, just in terms of the quality of the material, the production, the futurism of it. I love, love, love this record. Even Ricky Vincent, again, referred to it as one of the best records of 1979 to him. I do not blame him. This is a masterpiece. I'm going to check that out. The Dazz Band, Let the Music Play. I remember when I got the Dazz Band's Funkology on CD and I heard all their electro hits from the 80s, and I heard this horn funk number from 1981. I've seen this album a couple of times, but finally decided to get a hold of it. It's on Motown. It was the early 80s Motown label. This is from 81. Slave, Showtime. This came out first on a double CD and now on an import CD. But here's the band in 1981. There's Steve Arrington. He's been working a lot with Dame Funk lately. I've been finding a lot of Slave on vinyl this past year. It's on the Cotillion label. You've already seen that. This was one that I actually have had for a little over a year now, but I don't think it's been in any of my videos. Don Blackman. Don Blackman, for those of you not in the know, did some vocals and keyboard playing with Lenny White in the late 70s. And he went on to be with Lenny White's 29. And he made the solo record in 1982. He sure has an image, doesn't he? I love those coral beads in his short braids. It's on the GRP record label. But don't kid yourself about this album. This is serious, no-holds-barred, hardcore funk. Almost P-funk level, I'm actually thinking of starting a new segment that would feature albums like this, but we'll get into that soon enough. Rockwell The Genie. You've seen Rockwell on this list before, but I found this yesterday. It's a promo album. He's certainly conceptualizing his visual image. Those albums, the Don Blackman album you just saw was from 82. Now we're leaping up to 86. There's some lyrics. There's Rockwell with what looks like a makeshift harem. There's the Motown promo label. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So I think we've had a very, very exciting 20th video for my funk genre profile on vinyl. We've had some jazz funk, we've had some Motown, we've had some funk, we've had some 80s Motown. There's been a lot here. Just because of my growing collection. I don't know if this is going to be the last one or not, but I'm hoping it won't. But, until next time, enjoy your music. If you listen to it, enjoy your funk and let the vibes flow through. And peace to all of you. Thank you.